Hi, it's Ivan, here to bring you another gear review, and today we're talking about this guy, which is the SureFire SOCOM-300 SPS. Where does the 300 SPS fall in? Right here, this is the SureFire SOCOM-300 RC2, and dimensionally, a little bit longer and a little bit heavier consequently. But what is this guy made for? Basically, it is specific made to 300 Blackout. When you create a suppressor, you can absolutely make kind of a jack of all trades, but at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're designing something around a weapon system or a caliber or caliber and weapon system. No matter what, like you don't have like 20 host weapons that they're like, oh, like let's make something for everything. Ultimately, the engineers and design team are working around a caliber or weapon system. To that end, this being specifically made for 300 Blackout. So let's see how this guy does for us. Right here, as far as a host weapon goes, I have a Sig Rattler, 5.5 inch barrel, and even with this suppressor, pretty small little package. And if we want, we can actually break this guy down even smaller, and not being a DI kind of conventional system, it'll actually shoot like this, but I'm not going to. So let's see how this guy does. As far as ammo goes right now, I have in this magazine, I have 4 rounds of super followed by 4 rounds of sub. So we'll see how this baby does. Pretty rad, but let's go ahead and try another host. Next up, I have this guy right here, 12.5 inch Hodge defense. So get this guy on here and yeah, put some rounds through it. Right here, I again have a magazine loaded up with 4 supersonic followed by 4 subsonic. Pretty rad. Both with one, again, additional barrel length compared to the Rattler's 5.5 inches. Definitely quieter, easier on the ears. Not that the other one isn't bad or hearing safe, but yeah, this thing's really smooth. Of course, how does this thing perform on select fire? We are going to find out right now. It's awesome and absolutely controllable as long as you're doing your part. 300 SPS, rad little suppressor. As you can see, hearing safe, 5.5 inches on up, sub, super, it doesn't matter. Fun to shoot, pretty controllable, 25 yards, offhand, full auto, all that stuff's great. So where's the departure between this and the SOCOM-300 RC line of suppressors? Well, ultimately, part of it is kind of the driving factor with respect to design. These SOCOM suppressors were ultimately made for SOCOM, and so the design criteria differs slightly. One, POI, point of aim shift, they want to limit that. Reduce signature, also reduce back pressure. That's important because a lot of mill guns don't necessarily have adjustable gas blocks, especially like M4s, stuff like that. And so kind of all these different design elements here, whereas one of the real driving factors with this guy was actually to make a really quiet suppressor. So how do they do that? Ultimately in baffle design. This uses a pretty significant V shape, whereas this is shallower, but there's no free lunch. So while we're making this quieter for 300 Blackout, what we're also doing is creating more back pressure. So what does that really, how does that play out for you? Well, this will do great 300 Blackout, of course. But when we put it on a gas gun, what we will have is ultimately more gas coming back, which kind of, you can absolutely use it. In a minute, I'll go ahead and throw it on a 10.5 inch 5.56, but I'm gonna get more gas than I would from the other SOCOM 5.56 line, for example. But where does this also do a good job? When you don't have issues with back pressure. So think bolt guns, not gas operated. 5.56 all the way up to 300 Win Mag, this guy will treat you well. Right here for a host, I have a 10.5 inch 5.56 with a gas piston upper. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put some rounds through this guy. Absolutely usable on the platform, perhaps just not ideal. Overall, really impressed with the SureFire 300 SPS. Great little purpose-driven suppressor. Really quiet, does a great job with that 300 blackout, subsonic, supersonic, full auto rated. Is it right for you? Really depends on application, like how you're going to use this. As I demonstrated, you can use it on like a 5.56 gas gun, but you may or may not have issues with back pressure, because while this is probably SureFire's quietest 7.62 can, it's also arguably their gassiest, if that's even a word, can. Because again, design element going towards something really quiet versus something with reduced back pressure. So if you want this for, say, a 300 blackout, in addition to maybe a bolt gun where you're not worried about any type of back pressure, 5.56 all the way up to 300 Win Mag, this may well be the suppressor for you. You can pick them up usually a little over $1,000, about $1,079, something like that. And on top of that, you have the added benefit of all the SureFire muzzle devices, whether that's flash hire, muzzle brake, or their war comp, which is kind of my new favorite with respect to their muzzle devices. Yeah, get that bonus too. So depending on your needs, if you pick one up, let me know how it does for you. And thanks for joining us at TFBTV. And special thanks to Ventura Munitions, keeping TFBTV shooting.